Hello and welcome, RGMOOC agents. My name is Guthrie Caruso, and I'm the scientist from RGMOOC headquarters. Today I'm here to provide you with a brief video on thesis statements, implied versus explicitly stated. Alright, so what is a thesis statement? First off, the thesis statement projects the argument of the text. So when we define text, text is not just the written word. It could be an image, it could be an advertisement, it could be a video game, but most text is actually making some sort of an argument, and we want to figure out what that argument is via the thesis statement. Okay. Usually when it is stated, a thesis statement is one sentence long. Occasionally, if you are writing a longer paper, say a 15 or 20 page paper or a book, you will find multi-sentence thesis statements, but it's good to get in a habit of writing just one sentence that very concisely states what the argument of your paper is, or if you're summarizing a text, what the argument of that text is. Okay. In a written paper, you will usually find the thesis statement as the last sentence of the introduction. Okay, if it is stated. We're talking about stated thesis statements versus those implied. So if you're looking for it in that introduction paragraph, and towards the end of that introduction paragraph is generally where you will find it. All right, a thesis statement is generally composed of a claim, a linking word, and a reason or reasons, and we'll talk about what each of those are. And finally, it's either explicitly stated in the text itself or it is implied, and we then become detectives and have to figure out what that argument is. Okay, so an implied thesis. When a text does not state its thesis outright, but instead you must infer what the text is arguing based on the evidence it gives the reader, then you will have what is called that implied thesis. Many popular texts, such as video games and advertisements, have implied thesis statements. You'll also find implied thesis statements in narratives. Okay, so again, you won't find these actually stated in the text, but there's plenty of evidence given within the text that leads us to the conclusion that we have a specific argument being made. Okay, and it is up to the audience to then state the thesis clearly for themselves. We want to make sure we do this so that we are comprehending the text. Okay, so when you read a text or watch a text, engage and play with a text, if you're talking about video games, what you are doing is you are looking and reading critically at the text so that you can find what that implied argument is, that implied thesis statement, and then concisely state it for yourself. All right, an explicitly stated thesis is a little bit different. The text will clearly state its argument for the audience. Most scholarly articles, for instance, will tell the audience directly what the thesis is. Okay, so this is a little bit different. In narrative, the pleasure of finding out the thesis is really important. The same is true for advertisements, video games, movies, those kinds of things. In an argumentative paper, we do want to make sure that that thesis is stated so that your audience isn't searching for it, because the pleasure then becomes with them engaging with that argument, not just finding out the argument itself. All right, so the first part of a thesis, as I said, remember there's the claim, the linking word, and then the reasons. So what is a claim? We have to define that before we can write a thesis statement. Okay, claims are generally opinions, and they are broad argumentative statements. Bumper stickers are great examples of claims. So for instance, vote for Obama. Okay, this in itself is not an argument. When you saw that bumper sticker during the previous election, you are not engaging in the argument itself. Anyone who just gives a claim has an incomplete argumentative statement. Instead, this is the opinion. Okay. Another example of a bumper sticker is end racism. Okay. Again, we're making a claim here, but we're not backing it up yet. So it's not yet an argument by itself. Okay. Without a claim, you don't have a stance for your argument. Okay. So basically, vote for Obama, end racism, or any of the other kinds of bumper sticker statements that you will find state that stance, but we don't yet have the reasons backing up why somebody should. So the first thing someone would say if you told them to vote for Obama would be, well, why? Correct? So that's where you back it up with the reason. Okay? Claims, if writing the thesis of a text, make sure to include the title of the text and the author if provided in that claim, because you're not making your own argument. You're talking about the text. So you're talking about what the text is making a claim about. Okay, so let's take a look at this advertisement. This was done as a parody of some of those Absolute vodka ads that are so infamous now. This one says Absolute Tragedy. Obviously, the group that put this together is making an argument about something, right? Okay, so the first part is we need to figure out the claim of this advertisement. Okay, so when we take a look at it, the ad, Absolute Tragedy, implies that you should not drink and drive. Okay, so if you'll note here, included in this is the textual information. Okay, we are not making our own argument about drinking and driving. This is what the text is making an argument of. Okay, so we need to say what type of writing it is, okay, or what type of text. It's an ad, and then give the title, Absolute Tragedy, as is given. There's no author included with that specific advertisement, as often is true with advertisements, so we don't need to state that. So again, the Absolute Tragedy ad, Absolute Tragedy, that's giving that textual information. It implies that you should not drink and drive. This is a claim. This is the claim that the advertisement is making, but we don't yet have the reasons behind it. Okay, so then we have linking words. We need to define what a linking word is. Okay, basically it links together your, or the text that you're analyzing, claim and the reasons. Pretty easy. My favorite word is because. Okay, it's probably the most common linking word in a thesis statement. By no means is it the only one, but I do think it is one of the strongest. Okay, so you make your stance, your claim, and then you tell us why. Okay, there are other popular linking words. This is only a list of very, very few, but although, or however, since, or importantly. Okay, all of these linking words will change the purpose of your writing. So if you're stating what one person believes versus another, you're comparing and contrasting, you'd use a different linking word than because, or, you know, for although, you're going to disagree with what one person's claim is, those sorts of things. All right, so finally, we are going to get to the reasons of your thesis statement. So we've got the claim, the linking word, and then finally the reasons. So what are reasons? Reasons are the meat of your argument. Okay, they clarify the stance of your paper or the why of your argumentative stance. Frequently, students are taught to list out their topics as reasons. So in a paper, we have our thesis statement, that is the argument of the whole paper, and then we have the building blocks of the paper, which are our topic arguments. And so students will frequently list out those topic arguments. So here's an example. You should do your homework because if you don't, you will be lost, you will lose points, and you will hurt other students in group work. Okay, sound familiar? We're frequently taught to do this in elementary or high school and sometimes in the lower level college classes. However, when we get to a 15, 20 page paper, or even writing a book, if we try and list out all of our reasons as part of our thesis, we could have 15 to 20, 30 different topics that we have to list. That becomes a very, very long list, and nobody wants to read that. You're always thinking about your audience when you write, and you want it to be concise in order for your audience to know your argument. So a better approach is to use what I call the umbrella reason. Okay? So an umbrella reason is going to be a reason that covers all of the topics that are going to make it into the paper. This forces your thesis to be very concise and for all of your topics to connect to each other. This makes for a very logical paper. So in the same example, you should do your homework because, okay, remember that's your claim plus the linking word. What a good umbrella reason might be is doing homework will lead to success in a class. Okay, underneath that umbrella are then your different topics. Okay, so topic 1, if you don't do your homework, you won't understand the topic being discussed in class. That ties to your success in the class, right? Okay, topic 2, that argumentative reason 2, if you don't do your homework, you will be docked points. Again, that ties back to your success in the class. And topic 3, if you don't do your homework, you will let your classmates down when you're asked to do group work. Okay, see how all 3 of those topics fit underneath this nice little umbrella that we created with that success in a class. Okay, so when we are creating an umbrella reason, we want to find something that is going to touch on all of the topics, but that doesn't list them out. Okay. So, in the example before, how does the umbrella reason help to emphasize each topic argument? We just discussed that, okay? But this is a question you always want to ask yourself. If they don't tie together, chances are your paper is jumping around too much. Each topic must always apply to your thesis. So getting that good and concise umbrella reason is the key to doing that. All right, so let's take a look at this absolute tragedy ad again, okay? If you'll notice, there are a couple of things in here. There's a crashed car up at the top. There's what looks like a body bag in the shape of course, that Absolute vodka bottle, but it is also a body bag. And then we get the title down here, that Absolute Tragedy. All right, so the umbrella reason for this ad, we've got the claim. Okay, let's review. In the ad Absolute Tragedy, it implies that you shouldn't drink and drive. Okay, we're going to use a linking word because. And then the umbrella reason, if you take a look, overall it's saying that drinking and driving can lead to death. So our umbrella reason can be it leads to death, and then we could come up with different topic arguments underneath that are being made by the ad itself. Now this is a fairly simple ad, so you may not have as complex of an argument. You can probably summarize this text argument in one paragraph, but if we were developing a paper and doing a more in-depth analysis, we would want to find those reasons that come underneath it. But for the thesis statement, we just want to state that umbrella reason. Okay? Then the evidence to back up the thesis. We always want to make sure we have evidence from the text itself, whether it's the one that we are writing or the one that we are analyzing. So in this instance, we've got a crumpled car, we've got the body bag in the shape of a vodka bottle, and we've got the header, the Absolute Tragedy. So all of those lead us to believe that our thesis is true according to the text. That is the argument that the text is making. All right, so the final thesis, putting it all together, we want to pull the claim, the linking word, and the reasons together. So to state the implied thesis, remember the implied thesis is not explicitly stated in the text, but we gathered the evidence together and we came up with one. Okay, so we're going to state it as claim because reason. In the absolute or in the ad, Absolute Tragedy, it implies that you shouldn't drink and drive because you can die. All right, so let's try it with another one. This is a little bit more complex, and we have less evidence from this text. So some people may come up with different implied thesis statements because the text only gives us so much. That's absolutely okay as well, as long as when we are stating an implied thesis from a text that we are reading, we are pulling as much evidence as possible, okay? So this is an art piece from Damien Hirst. It's called For the Love of God. This is two different angles of it, okay? And assume for this exercise that this is both a real skull and they are real diamonds that are attached, okay? Now, absolutely that is true, but we want to make sure we make that assumption. There are lots of other things that we could look at as evidence, such as this kind of third eye one up here, as well as other things. But for this, I'm going to pull in a student example. Okay, so to find that implied thesis, and this applies to any text, but for this specific example, we're looking at For the Love of God. First, you want to document what you notice. What evidence is there for an argument? Okay, so we have evidence that this is a real skull. We have the fact that these are real diamonds that are attached to the skull, and you may notice other small things such as that third eye I pointed out. Okay, what is a potential claim the skull is making? Okay, it's an art piece. It's trying to say something. Without doing research about Damien Hirst, we're only looking at the text itself to come up with a thesis statement, though. All right, and what is the umbrella reason given by the text? Okay, and for this, you always want to look back at your evidence. Okay, so always follow these 3 steps. Document what you notice, that evidence, figure out the potential claim, and then figure out the umbrella reason. And then finally, you'll write out that complete thesis statement in 1 sentence. You want to be as concise and clear as possible. Claim, because, reason. Okay, so this is a student example. This is by no means the only thesis that you can pull from this. Okay, in Damien Hirst's For the Love of God, the art, okay, we're defining it, argues that diamonds come from death. That is the claim. Because, our linking word, the combination of human skull and diamonds connects readers to blood diamonds. Okay, so this is one direction you could go with it, but by no means the only one. All right, so the evidence that they pulled for this example is a human skull, the excess of diamonds, okay, blood diamonds are being mined, correct, so the excess was very important, and the diamonds are connected physically to the skull. So we know that there is a comment about death and diamonds being made, potentially life in diamonds. Some people take it in another direction, but what we are seeing is that that skull and the diamonds are connected. All right, so I am going to show you guys a video, and I want you to document the evidence as you notice it, okay? And anything that you think might help to identify what the implied thesis is. This is an advertisement, okay? So we'll take just a minute. I may break in and talk as we watch as well. Okay, what do those remind you of? Oh, we just saw a clown jump, so you might want to note that. And the paint is falling on. Note this as well. All right, so we noticed this is an advertisement for the Sony Bravia TV. All right. So, I want you to practice the thesis, finding it. Okay, there are certain things you can look for in here. This is obviously a much more complex argument. So in evidence, you may want to rewind and watch this video again. Look at the setting. Look at the way the paint is shown, right? What does it remind you of? We have lots of childhood images, for instance, so you may want to take that into consideration. Who do you think is the audience? All of these things will help you to identify what the thesis or the argument of this text is, okay? When we do analysis of something more complex like this or a video game, we're going to have much longer lists of evidence than we would for a simple advertisement that's just a picture. Okay, so record the evidence for the argument. Write down any potential reasons or topics. So what are all the different arguments that are being made within this text? Write an umbrella reason for the text. And finally, write that claim. Hint, advertisements are often trying to get us to buy something, and that is their claim. So you should buy blank because, and then come up with that umbrella reason. Now this advertisement did give us a little bit of text at the end, so that may give you a hint towards an umbrella reason. Not the only way to go with it though. Okay? Finally, you're going to want to write that complete thesis statement using claim, because, reason. In this video, I'm not going to give you the answer. So you may post in the comments section what you think, or if you meet with me in person, we can discuss this when we get together. All right, so to review, thesis statements are found in almost all texts, whether stated or implied. To compose a thesis, you need a claim, a linking word, and a reason. And to find an implied thesis statement, you must close read the text, whether it's a video, an advertisement, something that is written, a written document, or a video game. And finally, record that evidence for your argument, and you will come up with a thesis statement. You'll have everything built together that you can now write a good thesis that is examining the argument of the text or is making an argument for yourself. I am Kate Guthrie Caruso, the scientist from our GMOOC headquarters. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me at the links provided. Thank you very much.